Volumax Projector is completely different from Volumax Smart, Portrait or Landscape. It doesn't work with depth maps or advanced parallax. It uses camera projection on 3D planes. Just like film projectors, your picture is going to be projected on surfaces, and these surfaces are not flat like in the cinemas. We're going to project the picture on 3D planes adjusted to the photo. When the camera moves, you will have the impression in the 3D space if your setup is correctly done. This technique has been used in cinema for a very long time. It's named camera mapping or 3D matte painting. After Effects is not a 3D software, so we will not be able to modelize complex geometries, but we can still have great results on geometric pictures like corridors, city views, simple rooms, or flat landscapes with the possibility to add 3D objects in the scene. All these pictures will be perfectly compatible with Volumax Projector, but a picture like this one will not work because all the objects here, the chairs, the table, are in 3D and are not touching the ground at the same position. For a scene like this, you will have to use a real 3D software, and After Effects will not be able to transform this picture in 3D with correct results. Here we are in Adobe After Effects. I'm going to open my Volumax Projector project. You can find it in this folder. Just choose the version you need. If you don't open the right one, you will have a conversion message at the opening. Just ignore it. Okay. First thing to do is to save your file, because you want to preserve this blank original file. Okay, now I'm going to import the picture I want to animate. I'm going to drag and drop it in the project panel. If you don't know where the project panel is, just go in Window, Projects. To import your picture in Volumax Projector, you have to double-click on this first button here. I'm going to drag and drop my picture in the layers. And now I'm going to make it fit to my composition. Two solutions here. I can make it fit like this, and I will have to ignore the black borders. They will be cropped just before exporting. And that's the same if you work on a square picture or on a vertical picture, or even in a panoramic picture. They will be cropped just before exporting. Here I'm going to take all the space in my composition. I'm going to close this composition. And now I have to double click on my second button named Setup. Okay, here we are in the Setup workspace. Here you can find all the 3D planes that are going to be used to tell Volumax Projector that this is the floor or the walls or the ceiling. And you're going to move them and rotate them in your picture so it matches. You have many options here. I'm going to show you all this. First of all, you have options over here. You can change the plane visibility if you don't see what's going behind, or you can put them at maximum. I'm going to put the default value. You can also put your picture in black and white. That could be useful for some setups. Here you have the plane visibility options. So you can deactivate the planes you do not need. And most of all, you can activate new planes if you have a lot of walls, maybe. Here is a 3D preview of your 3D planes. You can rotate around like this. So you can see if something is going wrong, maybe the floor is not touching the walls. And this could be very useful in some cases. We will see that later. And here on the right, you can find the 3 first steps you will have to do for each of your setups. But first of all, I'm going to show you how all this works. You can grab your planes and scale them in several directions. If you grab a wall, you have options in your effects panel. If you lost the effects panel, you can just go in Window, Effects. You can rotate your plane so it matches with your picture. You can adjust at the top or at the bottom. Okay? I do not recommend using these options if you are able to set up your picture just by moving and rotating your planes. But sometimes this can be useful because your picture are going to be a bit distorted and you will need to move a little bit the layers like this. But before using these options, always try to do the 1, 2, and 3 steps. So in this case here, we do not need any walls, so I'm going to deactivate them. I'm going to make the floor match at the end of the road here. Then I'm going to make my backplate fit on the mountains because I want to tell Volumax Projector that this is the background, the farthest zone in my picture. I'm going to leave this like a ceiling for the clouds, and I'm going to grab the road and scale it towards the camera. Okay, we can see that the floor in this case has a very low angle of view. And in some cases, this can be a problem. So if we go in MainComp 4K, we can see that we have some white in the foreground here. That means that the camera in After Effects has a very low angle of view with your ground. There's an easy solution for this. Just take your backplate and just add more angle on the ground. Okay, if we go back here, you can see that by default we are at 0. And I just put 1. So I can say at After Effects camera that this plane is not so low in angle of view. I'm now in the main comp, and if I grab my controller and move in space, I will see my camera moving in 3D in my picture. Of course here it's not perfect because all the whites you can see here is the border of my picture. After Effects cannot create the missing parts of your picture. That's impossible. But in this case, it's not a problem because we just want to do a zoom. I'm going to grab the controller and scale it just like this, so I'm moving in my picture. So now, because I'm farther in my picture, I can move and I don't see anymore the annoying white borders. The picture seems very blurry here, but this is because we're not in full resolution. Here we are. Of course, if you work in full resolution, it's going to be very slow. So we saw that we can move our controller, we can scale it, and we can do a rotate on the controller too, if you use the W key on your keyboard. And the little green controller we have in the center is the camera target. Let's move in our picture so you will see how all this works. I'm going to create an animation and go at 3 seconds. I'm now going to scale my controller, so I move in my picture. Okay, like this. Let's go a bit on the side, just like that. And I'm going to take my target also and move it so I can look at the sky maybe like this. And this is it. If you press the 0 key on your keyboard, you're going to do a preview. So this is a preview in half quality over here, and it's pretty fast. Always remember that if you think things are a bit blurry, that's because you're not in full quality. I'm gonna stay in half. Let's add a rotation to our controller. To see all the keys we created automatically, you have to open your layers by using the little arrow here. But there's an easy way to see them faster, is to select the two of them and use the U key on your keyboard. That will show you all the animated keys of your layers. So if you want to delete the target animation, just select the key at the end at 3 seconds and delete it. If you want to delete all the animation, just do like this. And to reactivate the auto keys, just click on the little clock watch here. That's going to create a key, and I will be able now to move it, and it's going to create another key just there. I'm now going to do a fast overview of the main comp and show you what the buttons were created for. The first one is the resolution guide that would show you some common resolutions. This is just a helper if you want to export in a square format, just like this. Now you can move your controller so you will see how it will look like in a square format for Instagram, for example. If you leave it like this, don't worry, this will not appear in your final export. Here we have the flares. Left and right. You can change the appearance of the flares. You can change the scale and horizontal adjust. You can change the color with the color balance and the saturation. To see more about flares, just take a look at the included video tutorial. This button is to add particles to your scenes. You have the dirt to give a nice vintage look to your pictures. You can change the color of the dirt. And here you have the 3D particles. You can change the particles just by moving this slider. You can change the density of the particles. There are 3 levels. You can change the distance from the camera, the scale, the tile. If you want less distance tile on the sides or a higher one. In this case, maximum is recommended because we don't have any walls. The main opacity of the particles. You also have here individual opacity for each particle layer and individual blur for each layer too. You can add some chaos, do some color corrections with the curves, some color balance and color saturation. And of course, this was very fast, so go take a look to the included video tutorial about 3D particles to see all the possibilities of 3D particles. I'm going to show you the color corrections. You have black and white options, exposure, the gamma, the contrast, the saturation. You have nice Instagram filters. You have the vignetting. And you have animated light leaks. Go check once again the included video tutorial about color corrections. You also have options in the main controller. If you click on it and go in the effects panel once again, you can see some options here. You can hide the interface if it annoys you to animate, but this won't be visible anyway in the final export. And here you have some camera options. You have the depth of field, just like a normal camera. And you can say, where is the sharp focus point? Here I'm saying it's close to the camera, so it's sharp just in front. And here I'm going to say that it's going to be sharp only far from the camera. So my foreground is going to be blurry. Here we have some nice wiggle options. Wiggle is going to add some camera shakes in your animations. So you can see my camera shaking. And here is my final animation in high quality. I will show you later how to export your animations. We are going to work on this second example. We have two layers here. We have the background and a layer with the character here. I'm going to save these two pictures, and this one is going to be saved on a transparent PNG. Let's go in After Effects. Okay, I imported my two pictures, my background and my character. I'm going to import my background in Photo. I'm scaling it so it matches. Okay, I'm closing this composition, and I'm going to do the setup now. So we're going to follow these important steps we can see on the right. The first step is to adjust the backplate position and scale. So I'm going to make it match with the background over there. The second step here is to adjust the backplate X rotation to match wall bases on the floor. That means that the walls here have to match with the walls over here. And to do that, we're going to rotate this backplate. So I'm going to go in the options on the left here, in the effects panel, and I'm going to adjust the X rotation. I'm going to scale all the planes here so I can see if they match with my picture. If you want to be more precise when you move on a slider, push the Control key on your keyboard or the Command key on Mac and change the values while using the Control key. This will be more precise. Okay, so let's go in the MainComp 4K to see if this works. I'm going to take a look in full quality, and everything seems sharp. So now we want to import our character. And to do that, we're going to use the 3D objects over here. I'm going to activate object 1. I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to go in Photo by double clicking. And I'm going to drag and drop my picture in the layers. I'm going to scale it so it takes the maximum space in the composition. This is okay. I'm going to activate a depth map. Okay, I'm using the auto depth map. You have to take a look to the included tutorial named 3D Objects if you want to see more in detail how all this works. I'm going to use a little trick here. I'm going to use the Y key on my keyboard and move the pivot on the feet of my character. Just like this. So if I do a scale now, it's going to keep the feet at the same place. The first thing to do is to activate the radar here. It's going to show you where it's touching the borders of the walls or the floor, the ceiling, and that's going to tell you where it's in space at which distance from the camera. So if I move with close or far, it's going to go farther in my comp or closer to my camera. I'm going to zoom so I can see the shadows on the ground of the feet, and I'm going to make it match at the same distance. Okay. I'm going to scale it down. I can see that my character should be at this scale. If you want to adjust exactly the position of your object, just import your original picture temporarily and adjust your object so it matches with the original picture. Here I'm just going to do it like this. So now I'm going to animate my scene. Let's go at 3 seconds. I'm going to zoom and move in my scene. I'm going to change the target and do a rotation in my main controller. I'm going to check if the displacement works on my character here. Okay. I'm going to add a text. This works exactly the same way than the 3D objects. And let's add some flares and particles. Okay, so this is my result after a bit more work. I'm going to show you how to export this animation by using the export presets included in Volumax. I'm going to show my interface and I'm going to double click on the export button. I have to go in the projects panel and double click on export presets. So here I have some presets, the most common resolutions. I'm going to choose the first one here because it's the Full HD resolution I need and it's faster and I don't need to export in 4K. Okay, the first thing to do here is to check the duration of this composition. My animation goes for 4 seconds, so I'm going to adjust the duration of this composition at 4 seconds. And now I'm going to export by sending this composition to Adobe Media Encoder by going in Composition and Send to Adobe Media Encoder. Control Alt M or Command Alt M. Okay, so I have this line here, it's my project. I'm going to choose my codec. I'm going to keep the H264 and I'm going to use the YouTube 1080p Full HD resolution because this matches with my scene. And I'm going to choose where I want to export. And I'm going to click on the small arrow here. Okay, and here is my final result. And to finish, I'm going to show you very fastly how I did the setup of this very nice animation. Let's go in After Effects and take a look. Okay, so I'm in the scene now. You can see it move it in my main comp. Let's go in the setup. So to set up the scene, I just did a backplate very far over there in the mountain, 2 walls for the 2 mountains, and a plane on the ground for the water. And I added 3 objects over here. The 3 boats. And to find a good position and scale for each of the boats, I used the trick I explained later by replacing my picture with something like this. So I can see where to put my boats at the first frame. All the boats are perfectly positioned on the picture. And something interesting here is that my second object has 2 boats. You can see them here. For the animation, I moved and scaled my controller, and I also moved the target and added some rotations, so the animation looks like a helicopter flying just over the lake, with a little bit of wiggle to give something more organic in the animation.